Today on Gamer's Couch,
Star Wars, Armada, 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 Armada.
Gucci?
No.
No?
German edition, we can pronounce it any way we want to, because we're allowed to.
Reasons.
Armada. Does that sound German enough for you?
Hello and welcome to the couch. Happy Sunday to all of you guys. It's the last Sunday of January. I can't believe the time has gone by so fast. But yeah, welcome to a new edition of the Gamer's Couch.
Reporting live from the underwater base in Germany because it's raining cats, dogs, and Star Destroyers.
So our goal for January, playing Aquasphere, is achieved by the weather outside.
Yes,
Yay!
yes.
Awesome.
I'm pretty sure I kicked several octopods on our way to
the
shopping,
supermarket.
to the grocery store.
Yeah. If you're new to the channel or the series, let me quickly introduce ourselves. This is Daniel, my very sweet husband, who's also quite sarcastic, cynical, and other things, but he's lovely and he's a board gamer, just as me.
I was serious. Imagine someone new coming to this channel and you're let me tell you how it is. First off, let's say hi.
I did.
It's good to see you here.
At the beginning of the video, I said hello.
I haven't noticed you before.
Because you're blind, pretty much. And he always likes to interrupt me, so get used to that.
I never do.
It's how you have a conversation. My name is Sarah. I'm the artist behind Pinselgeschichten and owner of this channel. And just as my sweet hubby, I am a huge board game nerd. And thus we talk board games every Sunday on this channel. We go about it just like that. We explain rules and general gameplay of the game that we have on the couch. First, that's his part to explain. And
also drinking a lot of coffee.
No, that's my part. Then we talk about what we liked or not liked about the game and tell you a bit about funny stories and experiences just to round up the experience of the game. And today it is Star Wars, Armada, Gucci, Versace, whatever you wanna call it. And now his ears are starting to bleed. So I have him in a spot where I want him. He cannot flee. He has to explain to all of us how Star Wars Armada is played.
If at least we would have been sponsored by all those name drops you did, but we are not.
I'm trying here. Maybe. Probably not. But if you want to, you can sponsor us, guys. Don't worry. No, go. Tell us about Star Wars Armada.
You might have noticed that in recent cinema history, there was a series of movies that just got one of the latest editions in a future far away, a long time ago, something.
Galaxy.
Regarding Den Krieg der Sterne, or Star Wars as you English speakers are calling it. And Star Wars Armada, if you're familiar with the franchise, is all about these guys. Big capital ships, firing. Also these guys, small ships firing, a lot of firing actually. Actually, it's only almost firing upon the other one. Sometimes you try to land on something. Most of the time you try to not land on something. This is a tactical miniatures game. You have these, I have to say, beautiful ships that are actually quite large and come on these pedestals and have little tokens on here or little counters on here to keep track of stuff. And you will be playing on a table, preferably with a star field on it, but a blanket will do as well. Essentially, each game is made up of 6 rounds where you will duke it out with someone else. It's a 1-versus-1 game or a team versus team game, so you're not necessarily restricted to only 2 players, but you will always have 2 teams fighting against each other. In the sister game to this, X-Wing, I think they just introduced a 3rd faction, so maybe that'll come to Armada as well, but as of now, this is a strict kind of 2-player or 2-party game. There's basically 2 types of elements you'll be playing with. Your capital ships, the big ones, and your little fighter squadrons that you will send out, and those are effective at different things. And what you actually have to do per scenario is determined at the beginning. So even before you start, the first thing you do is you assemble your fleet by choosing any of these capital ship cards. These are the German versions, so just trust me when I say that this is a CR90 Corvette. It says CR90 Corvette A. There's also a B somewhere in here, but
lots of German lessons of the day.
Die Corvette A is one of the rebel ships available for you. And obviously you have to choose which faction you want to play. The Imperials rarely fight against other Imperials, although they did that in the TIE Fighter video game, which is actually pretty cool too. So if you like that, this game might be something for you. So you pick one or a multiple of these capital ships, and each ship comes with a cost attached to that, and kind of you agree before starting the match to have roughly the same amount of points. And obviously you probably will have a difference there. If you have lower points than your opponent, you usually get to start or get to decide who starts the game. Same thing for the Imperials. Let me find that Star Destroyer for you. So this is the Star Destroyer of the Siegesklasse or Victory class, which sounds actually pretty much cooler than Siegesklasse. Although siege star, I'm getting off track here. In addition to that, you can also choose either generic squadrons like these X-Wings or named squadrons like, for example, Luke Skywalker. Obviously, if you have named stuff, usually you're not allowed to have a lot of them. You kind of have only one mini per thing, and unfortunately the miniatures come with little things to put in tokens to mark them as this is Luke now, and not just some generic X-Wing pilot. It is Luke who will die to the Imperial assault. It's actually a different game, but to the fire laid upon him from that said Victory class Star Destroyer. After you've set up your forces and decided which ships to bring, you can still add some additional attachments or names and stuff. And here's already some cards from some of the expansions because we just threw them together. You can fit out your ships with additional weaponry, and similar to the ships, these cost an additional amount of points. And not every ship can equip everything. You have these handy reference icons down here that correspond with the icons on the back of the card here, so you kind of already know what equipment you can buy. So right before you start the game, you are faced with the difficulty: will you bring a lot of small ships that are very fragile, or will you bring a very balanced force, or maybe that uber destroyer ship that is duked out with everything? But if that goes down, you essentially lose the game because you have no other ship. Which brings us to the next point: how do you actually win in this game? Well, one of the most generic way to count if you win at this game is to count the point value of the ships your enemy has after you've destroyed them. So you kind of take trophy ships, and at the end of the game you tally them up and see who has the most points. But to make things a little bit more interesting, and in fact this is different from maybe X-Wing if you played that a bunch, you get these scenario cards, and essentially what happens that each player gets to choose one of each color before each match, and then whoever has I think it was the least points gets, was it the first? No, I think it's the second, who chooses the scenario.
The second.
Yeah,
I think, if I remember correctly,
the player who does not start first gets to choose which of these scenario cards come into play, and they you still get points for destroying enemy ships, but these introduce new additional tasks to do. Some of them might be that you have to keep certain points on the map within range of your ships, and you get points each turn for those, which will then tally up to the destroyed ship counter that you had. It might also be something where you have to defend some ship, or you have to destroy some other ship. So just adds a little bit of spice and variety to the age-old let's fly at each other and just, instead of jousting ships in one another and shoot each other to the smithereens. And then now I'm blanking on more metaphors or things like that. Shooting the other one in the blunderfuts.
Didn't know that we speak Swedish as well.
We don't speak Muppets.
No, we don't speak Muppets.
So you brought your force. You now decided on what scenario to play. The only thing left is to set up the board. For that, you have one, or you actually will use this distance marker quite often. Everybody starts at opposing sides of the map, which is 90 centimeters by 90 centimeters, or if you're playing with bigger forces, I think can be 120 by 90 centimeters. That is something you may want to look up in the manual, but we're playing with a 90 by 90 map Starfield here.
Because we have this Starfield map, and
which
we just
helps tremendously in terms of theme and feel if you have ships flying around there. The other thing you will do to make the space a little bit more interesting and not just have it flat is add asteroids or these wreck, what's it called? Trash ship? I don't know what the English name. There's a debris field. Ha! I remember! You're not as old as you might think I am. Or this starbase, which are obstacles in one way, in terms of you should not fly into those, or you will damage your ships, or they might obscure range and trying to shoot at something, which you might know from X-Wing. The space station, however, is actually a thing I haven't seen in X-Wing so far, which is pretty cool. If you land on that, you can repair your ships, so it's actually a positive thing to crash into.
It's called docking. It's not crashing into. You dock onto the station.
Correct. Repair. So you'll start by taking turns deploying your big ships, and the base game comes with one big ship for the Imperials, being that Star Destroyer, and two medium-sized, are these? I think they're small-sized. I almost forget.
Medium. I think one of them was medium class.
It could be that these are. Yeah, whatever. These two ships, so you get a Nebulon B frigate and the CR-90 Corvette A.
This is not how we talk usually. He's just
Germaning.
Germinating?
True. Whereas the Imperial, you can add a couple of these nice little TIE fighters as squadrons, and those will be deployed after all the capital ships have been deployed. Same for the X-Wings that come with the Rebels. There's obviously a couple more squadrons than just one for each side in the game, but that's just enough to get you started. So the base pack has quite a good amount of plastic, and while the capital ships, just to show you again, are beautiful to look at because they're pre-painted, the small squadron ships are not. So if you're inclined to paint them by yourselves, feel free. These are almost the same size as the ships from Battlestar Galactica or other games with very small ships. So that might be a little bit fiddly, but it is certainly possible. And then after setup, you will start the game. Now, each capital ship comes with a whole slew of information. So let's.
If you need a hand.
Let me start by showing you our Victory class Star Destroyer. and what actually is on this card here. Now, this image down here actually should correspond with the image on his block, and you can flip them around for different configurations. They will essentially tell you how many shields you have in your aft, front, starboard, and what's the other board?
The opposite of starboard.
I'm terribly bad with that, but that's just I'm missing the English term for that. I know the German one, but
Yeah.
it's not backboard.
No.
That's our word for it.
We have the German one is backboard, which is left.
and Steuerbord, which is right, but
Starboard and I'm mentally going through all the Star Trek.
Correct. Shields on starboard, number one. Anyway, the you'll see your shield configuration here for your different sides of the ship. You also get a number of stats, which are attributes and tell you how good your ship is at certain things. For example, you have a command stat that will govern how many of those command wheels you'll have. You have a squadron stat that tells you how many squadrons you may activate with this ship. You also have it's called technical here. I guess it might be repair, because that's the stat used to repair your ship if you've taken damage. Also, the most important thing is your hull value, which just tells you when you're dead, because if that reaches 0, you're gone. And some special abilities that let you mitigate or have damage as you like. And last but not least, this field down here actually tells you how fast your ship is, or better said, how it behaves at which speed. So together with that ship, you actually, and I have this rather beautifully 3D printed tray, which you can find online on the Thingiverse. It's not mine. I'll look up the name of the guy who did this, but I rather like these. You have this tray of stuff for your ship here, which is the command wheel, which I'll explain shortly. This is a wheel that indicates the speed of your ship. You're up to 4 different abilities. You might have some multiple times in here. And tokens for actions you'll be taking with the command wheel. You can store that. Last but not least, there's a marker to indicate which ship this whole tray is actually referring to. So you can, if you are inclined to do so, use that little nudge here to put a marker in there and saying this is actually ship number 7 or something like that. So before you do anything, you'll start with as many of these command wheels as your command wheel tells you, and we said the Star Destroyer has 3, so you have those 3. On each of those, there are 4 icons, and what will happen each turn is you choose to activate your ship. So you pick up the top one, take a look at what you set this to do, and this could be any of those 4, and then you get to decide, do you want this as a special action? Or do you want to save this for a later time, but then it's not be as effective? So essentially you can choose to activate this wheel at once with full power, or take one of these tokens to save it for a later time. But you're only allowed to have one of these tokens per action at a time. But it allows you at least to use it in conjunction with the same action at a later point. So let's say I'm starting the game. My first action is actually to go for the repair thing, which is this little geared thingy, which essentially allows me to look at my repair technical value up here, and then either repair shields in that amount of thing, or discard damage cards, which we'll get to, or to readjust shields that I have on the ship to reconfigure stuff. So say I have been hit in the front really badly, I then can move some of my side shields to the front, for example, to do that. If I would have stored this thing, I only get half of what I would initially get with my technical value. But in a later turn, if I spend a token and have this action, they count together. So it's actually a pretty good thing to start off by saving one of these actions, just in case you might need it later on. The other actions you can do are this maneuver action, which allows you to change the speed of your ship. So one of the reasons you have your speed on one of these dials here is actually because your ship keeps on moving at that speed. So different to, let's say, X-Wing, and I'm comparing this a lot because they are very similar in a lot of terms, but then they're not in others. So you'll configure your capital ship to travel at one of these speeds, and the Star Destroyer can only travel at speed 1 or at speed 2. Technically, there's also speed 0, but for most intents and purposes, you will be moving with your ship, because if you're not moving, you are actually not allowed to use most of these green icons, because you're a sitting duck. And will be fired upon. So with that maneuver icon, you can change your speed by 1, and I just realized that I held this up the wrong way. And then you'll move at a different pace here. I'll get to movement soon enough. Let me quickly explain the other icons. You can use the icon here, that explosion for focus fire, which essentially allows you to re-roll a die, or to add another die, better set, to your shot. Re-roll if you store this as a token. And last but not least, the squadron icon, which takes the squadron value of your ship and allows you to activate as many squadrons in your capital ship turn. The reason why that is important is in each game or in each turn you will activate your capital ships first, and after that you will activate your squadrons, and it's always one player activates one ship, then the other the next, and so on. So this action actually allows you to have your little fighters attack and move in your capital ship turn. Usually in the squadron turn that happens after the capital ship turn, you must decide if you want to move your ship or if you want to attack with your little squadron ship, but they may not do both unless they have some kind of special ability that would allow them to do that. So let's talk about how a capital ship moves, or actually let's not. Let's talk about how a capital ship attacks, because that is the thing I always get wrong with this game, just out of the habit for playing other games. In this game, if you activate a ship, you shoot first and then move. So you're Han Soloing this game. And that is actually the only way I can tell you to remember this. So what you'll do is you take a look at your handy how many dice may I roll thing, and each of these bases actually tells you the firing arc, at what you can fire upon. You can fire twice during a ship's activation, but you may not fire from the same section more than once. So you can give dole-out damage this side, dole-out damage that side. If another ship, let's say this pesky rebel frigate, is situated here, so that technically you could fire from this and from this side, you may do so. There's no restriction that you cannot fire upon the same section. And actually one of the interesting things about this game is to position your ships in an advantageous position and then
place. It's also
fire upon the other one to get them. Then you will use this beautiful, it's actually the same thing for the distance, but it's the other side, this beautiful piece of extended laser will then be placed upon here and determine how far away the other guys. The icons or the colors on these segments tell you which dice you're allowed to use. So let's take a look at my ship here. This says if I fire from my front section, I get to use 3 red dice and 3 blue dice. However, if the enemy ship should be at this distance, I only get to use 3 red dice because that's what the red icon here says. On this and on this distance, I get to use all 6 dice. Now, let's take a look at the dice. There's 3 different kinds. Red are kind of the worst, or, well, I think they are the ones with the most miss sides. Then comes blue, and then comes black. If you shoot at someone, just the attacker rolls. Another thing that is actually kind of streamlining the gameplay, and I'm going into the likes section here a little bit because I actually like that. You roll your die, and then you see if there's little explosion icons on here. In this case, this would make 2 points of damage. You just add them all together from the different dice, and then apply that to the shields that the ship has. So my Star Destroyer still has 3 here, so I would just... He goes down to 1 for 2 damage. Other things on here are this burst icon for a critical hit. Now, in most cases, this icon has some kind of special meaning, but the basic meaning is if you roll at least one of those, then damage taken by the ship will be flipped over, and that actually happens if the other player has no shield on their side anymore. So you have this little stack of damage cards, and usually for each point of damage you take one of those cards as is, and you don't see what's on text on the other side, and put it next to your ship cards. If the amount of card ever gets equal or more than what you have on hull, your ship is dead. However, if you do damage to someone else and roll one of those, at least one of those critical hit things, this card will be turned over and an additional effect happens. In this case, shields are down, and the attacker may choose 2 hull sections, and you lose 1 shield point in each of those. So those are always bad news. Otherwise, those critical hit things in ship or capital ship to capital ship combat are just counted as 1 basic hit. So even if you roll 2 critical hits, you only flip over the first card, and the rest of those are just counted as regular hits. But make sure to read that up, because that is actually different from ship to ship, and with some you ignore them completely, with some you may use that to do another special action. It's a little bit tricky, and it's actually a good idea at the beginning of the game to tell, for your own sake and for the opponent's sake, what your ships do in what configuration, and if you have some special equipment that makes use of that. Sometimes you can also choose to use the critical effect in the regular fashion, or to activate an equipment card that you have attached to a ship to do something interesting with that. The other icon, or the last icon that's on here, is this targeting circle, which allows you to tell the player you're attacking not to use one of his special abilities, which brings us to special abilities. So as I said, each ship card tells you that you have a number of these special defense abilities. Depending on what you might have multiples of these available, and what they do are, let's start here. You can flip over this guy to half the damage you're taking, which is pretty powerful. You can flip over this guy to evade some damage, and that is depending on how far away your attacker is from you. You may, if he's on the long distance, like the 3 here, the red, you may point at a die, and then that die goes the way of the galactic dodo, so he's not considered for this attack. If he's at mid-range, you get to or you can force him to re-roll 1 die. At short range, evading at short range is not possible, I'm sorry. If you flip over this icon here, this means you can redirect the damage to another shield on one of the sides, allowing you to distribute the damage across your shields a little bit better, which is tremendously useful if you're being attacked full from one side and can at least direct some of the damage to one of the other sides. And this token here is so immensely powerful that none of us have played a ship so far that used it, which negates the entire damage, again, if you turn this over. Now, in an encounter, you can turn this over, and once it is turned over, you can spend one of these an additional time, but you will lose them for the entire battle. So while these refresh from turn to turn, so you can have damage per one attack each turn, if you really have to, and maybe that is one of the moves that it'll decide your victory or not, you can spend them an additional time, but then you're lost that thing. So coming back to this, rolling one of these targeting icons allows your attacker to say, you're not allowed to have damage this turn. And that's why it is sometimes advantageous to have certain icons more than once on your tray. So we have talked about that. All I've talked so far only actually applies to capital ship combat. So if you're attacking one of those big boys with one of the other big boys. If you're attacking squadrons, slightly different rules apply. For example, you still choose a section to fire upon and you determine the fire arc in this thing. However, you will only fire upon the small range thing. I think it's this one, not this one.
No,
this is just for squadron. So
don't poke me.
You can fire upon squadrons in small range, and the difference there is you will actually fire on all the squadrons that are in that specific firing arc. So that sounds great, but you will only fight with your squadron attack die, and in most cases it is just one die, and the Star Destroyer has one blue die to roll against each squadron, which isn't that impressive, to be honest. Let me see if what we have here. The Nebulan B Escort Fregatte has 2 blue dice. Still not great, but well, better than nothing. So you already sense a theme here. Capital ships are pretty good at beating up other capital ships. They're not that great at fighting squadrons. You don't want to get too close or you might get burned, but it is actually it is quite difficult to hit with these big guys and damage the small guys. The other way around, if you have one of your squadrons attacking one of the big guys, you have your little squadron card here. And actually, yeah, let's stick with the combat thing. I'll talk to movement because those are going to be moving in a bit. The X-Wing here says it'll attack with 4 blue dice, but only against other squadrons, and the small guys are even worse. They can only attack with someone with this side of range 1, so you really have to get close to be able to shoot at them. Against capital ships, they only get 1 die, and when I said that the critical burst symbol on these dice is a little bit weird, that is, for example, or mostly attributed to that interaction. If a capital ship attacks a squadron, you ignore these icons. If a squadron attacks a capital ship, you ignore these things. If a squadron attacks another squadron, you ignore. So these only, for most of the cases, again, count for capital ships. However, special abilities may change that. Case in point, the X-Wing squadron has a special ability called Bomber, where those critical icons still count as 1 damage if you're attacking a capital ship with it, but not as a critical damage, just as 1 point of damage, which still makes them actually quite useful, because that increases the amount of die faces on the red die that actually hit a capital ship with this guy. Another special rule in this is if your 2 squadrons are close enough to be in this 1 range, they are not allowed to move anymore and must fight to the death, pretty much, until one of those squadrons is done for. These minis, or the bases, similar to the big ships, have little markers on here that you can turn over to indicate how much damage they've taken, and the card will tell you actually with how much hull points that thing starts. So in this case it's 5. I would set it to 5, and each hit on my squadron reduces this by 1. Small ships, usually no shields, so 5 hits and the squadron is gone. And there's usually also no way to repair them in some way or fashion. TIE fighters, even more fragile, 3 hits and they're gone. But they're a little bit cheaper than the X-Wings, and maybe you can swarm the X-Wings with a bunch of TIE fighters. Sounds a bit like the movies, doesn't it? And that is the basic gist on the combat system. Now, as Han Solo, and we said previously, shoot first then move, after shooting you get to move. And again, it's a little bit different between capital ships and squadrons, so let's pretend we're still in capital ship territory. And let's take a look again at our Star Destroyer. Let's say we're moving at speed 2. That means we move 2 segments and may adjust our course by 1 click. What does that mean? You have this kind of gimmicky looking ruler here that'll allow you to indicate how far you will be traveling. These nudges here fit onto the sides of the base here. See, I hope you can see that. Meaning if I would move 2, I would just move my ship here and then I'll be done. But I said you can adjust by 1. So these segments are actually movable for little clicks. And if it says 1 click, I can adjust my course by 1 at the 2 position. The only other thing I have to pay attention is that if I move my ship along this thing here, I may not, or I have to move it so that the ship does not cross this ruler. So I may not move it in this fashion from this side, because then it would cross the ruler, and that is not allowed. Ships, while traveling, may cross any obstacle as long as they can cross it entirely in terms of asteroid fields and other ships mainly. So if you're really fast, you can jump over another ship as long as your base doesn't touch it. If your base should land on another capital ship, you just keep on moving back and reducing your speed until you can kind of avoid the crash, but still both of you will take damage because you rammed them. Not nice. Squadrons, you don't care about squadrons because, like the pesky flies they are, you will just disperse them around your ship. So if you land on a squadron, you just move the squadron to the side of the ship. Actually, your opponent does that, or the one who's not flying into the squadron, and might get a tactical advantage from that. After all your capital ships have shot and moved, they may then activate squadrons that you have not activated yet in your capital ship phase, maybe through the squadron special action on your command dial. Now, one of the things I very much like about this game, and we're almost done with the rules. I know it's a long segment this time. Each turn you will flip over this thing to indicate who is first to go, and all of these ships come with these little indicator bridges, and after you took your move with your ship, you just indicate that you're done by pushing it to the other side, and so you always know which ships have moved and have not moved. For that purpose, those command dials indicate that for the big ships if you have already done something. Actually, I totally forgot. We'll do that at the end of the turn. With your small squadrons, as I said previously, you may either move or shoot with them, and you can only shoot if you're close enough to someone else, and if you're very close to another squadron, if no rules say otherwise, you must fight them before you can move on. Now, how do these ships move? Well, you have a speed indicator on here saying how far you can move. In this case, the X-Wing can move 3 spaces. So you just put this ruler at the base, and then you move 3 spaces. No ruler special action movement thing as in X-Wing is required here. They're just considered to be more agile than the big ships, which again streamlines the game quite a bit. After all your squadrons have moved and shot and all that, you get to clean up, and that means you get to decide what is going to be on your command dial next time. Obviously, you can choose the same thing, and you have to put it under your other dials, meaning having a high command value for your ship. Let's say the Star Destroyer here with a command value of 3. If you choose what your command dial is going to say, you need 3 turns to actually react to what someone else has been doing. So if you're a good admiral, you know in advance when you'll need a repair. But the Corvette has it a little bit easier. It only has 1 command dial and can choose from turn to turn which action to activate, which is one of the bigger strategic things going on in this game. Rinse and repeat for 6 turns, and then see who has won after how many ships have been destroyed and all that. I think I covered. I know it's been a lot, and there's a lot of little intricate things. Fortunately for you, this game comes with a starter rulebook, similar to X-Wing and most of the other Fantasy Flight games, where you just start learning the game by playing a game with a reduced rule set, which is actually pretty nice. You get a full how to set this thing up with here's your star field, and you should pay attention that these are this close within each other's range, and so on. And after that, you get a reference manual that'll go into all the individual little bits, and actually I'd recommend to read this while it is a little bit dry, because it's just walls of text. There's some very useful information in here, and it is structured in a way that makes looking up information while playing the game easier, but it still helps if you know what's in here, or at least have a basic concept of what's in the game. I think I'm done.
Yay, he made it. Thanks for explaining it. Which leads us right to the next section, likes and dislikes. Now, here's one thing. He already said, this took quite a long time to explain. Actually, it plays quite quicker than you can explain.
Yeah.
So 1 round is maybe 10 minutes max if you play slowly.
Let me check. Maybe it says on the box. If it says on the box, it says on the other box. Does it say on the box?
It says 2 hours, 14 and older, 2 people.
See, so 2 hours.
Including setup and everything. We played 45 minutes.
Probably. In fact, this I'm pretty sure if you got 2 or 3 games under your belt and you have a pretty good idea what you want to fight with, if you set up your army list in advance, or if you happen to own a copy each and can prepare that, you would just bring your little trays of stuff, and then it's actually fairly.
It was really
quickly.
fast to play, but it takes a bit to set up and play the first scenario, because the rules you just gotta learn them, like with every game.
You always play just those 6 turns, so obviously the more stuff you bring, the longer it will take. But unlike X-Wing, where you might not have a very clear-cut victory condition after some point in time. I mean, you can add that to X-Wing, and that works fine as well. But here, the game inherently says 6 turns, and then you have to count who's the winner, which gives a very strict timeline. And those 6 rounds go over very quickly.
Fast,
so
like I said, if you play really slowly, you have maybe 8 to 10 minutes for a full round. But we managed to have 5 minutes per round, pretty much. We played, including setup, 45 minutes. So that was rather quick. But let's talk about what we liked or not liked about the game. Want me to start?
First of all, because I looked that up. So these beautiful, as I said, 3D printed trays and card holders, and there's actually some more in Other things that you can find, I looked it up and I'll read it to you because my memory is not that young. And this gentleman is called Rob Bates. You can find his stuff on the Thingiverse, the 3D printing Emporiums, I think is the right word. Username is R404, so that's ERR404, and he has...
I will have it in the screen below. I will type that there in editing.
While this doesn't look like much, it's super useful. So thumbs up for you, sir. That actually sped up and organized our table play quite a bit.
Yeah, but now let's go for the likes and dislikes. So we played X-Wing before. We had Star Wars Armada, and I was positively surprised when we had Armada on the table because it fixed all the things that I was not too happy with when playing X-Wing. Mainly those little tokens that you get with your capital ships. You will not have them on the star field while you play next to the ships all the time. You will have them next to the card with your ship.
Technically, I think the rules actually say you should put them on your ship, but I mean, with that...
Yeah, on your ship, on your card. Not like on the mini or next to the mini and 1,000 wheels next to the minis and stuff like that. I was not really happy about that with X-Wing.
I'd say, even though that is... You can influence that greatly. You could do all that, keep your command wheels next to your cards and all that. I think the game introduces itself a little bit less busy on the starfield than
because
X-Wing does.
You have by turning the command wheel and have it on your card, you show that your capital ship already moved, and with these awesome little movable chips here on the minis, you can say, okay, this one already moved. We had to put the wheels next to the minis on. Same with
X-Wing. Having one of these instead of having
1,500.
Well, yeah, it's not.
No, it was bad, like 5 or 6 different kinds of.
I would agree, but I would say that it fixes issues I had with X-Wing, which I wasn't directly aware of while playing X-Wing. But now that we played Armada, I see some things that
I wasn't too happy with that in X-Wing, but we didn't play with huge squadrons in X-Wing. We had maximum 4 or 5 ships all the time, so we managed with our starfield. But would we have played with the bigger minis a lot, that would have been another story.
And she's a very grumpy person in general, so...
No, I really just... I want to point out that this game fixed that to a point where I said, wow, this is awesome. I mean, I really... They're a bit more difficult to put together, those tiny minis, in comparison to the capital ships, but I really like those movable cardboard pieces here where you can say, okay, this moved in the Rebel round, this moved in the Imperial round. So I just really liked what they came up with. Also, I like that the bases for the capital ships do have the shields with these tiny wheels on the base. You don't have to write that down anywhere. You don't have to use tons and tons of markers. It's just clean and simple and all there. Like with X-Wing, the minis are painted nicely except for the squadrons, but like he said, you can paint them if you want. Just get some tweezers, otherwise you will have more acrylic paint on your fingers than on the mini. Talking from experience here. So yeah, otherwise quality is awesome with the game. It's a Fantasy Flight game, so I expect good quality with the cards, with the minis, and with the cardboard pieces. That is done well. Just like with any other Fantasy Flight game, the insert of the box is horrible. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I'm not gonna go too deep into that, but it's very, very sad when you have tiny antennas of the minis break because there's no good inserts of the game, but we managed to go around that as well. So it's okay, and we're just careful with the game anyways. We don't throw things. We don't have a lot of earthquakes here where something falls out of the shelf, but in other parts of the world that might be something like,
and let's say if you just keep the base set, or we just grabbed a couple of the first wave expansions, and I don't think we'll get more, not because we dislike the game, but because
we do have other
we have a ton of X-Wing stuff, and while I love those minis and I like to collect them to some point, it is still annoying me that I have all those minis and they don't get played as often. But that is a very specific disease for if you have a lot of games and play.
I promise you, if we're still kind of smart and as nerdy and geeky as we are now, when we are retired, we will play board games all day long and a lot of X-Wing and Star Wars Armada and stuff. The things that we rarely play.
Do you want to start retiring next year?
I'd like to, if sponsors. No, but I mean, these are classic games, I think. That is why I say it's, if we don't have too many editions of the minis, but maybe just one wave, it's not a trendy game, but it's a classic one-on-one war game in terms of mechanics put into it. I mean, the story and the universe is around for a long time and we really like it. So I'm very sure that we will like it in 20 years still. So then you can retire and I'm a millionaire because of all of the business. Haha. But then we can play a lot. And I mean, then we will have more time for that.
Oh, sorry. Those were the wrong ones. The exhaust.
Yeah, that's
shaft.
Yeah. What I also like a lot is what they changed a bit in comparison to X-Wing, and it makes way more sense in this game with the big ships, is that you have the speed and the command wheels separated, that you just have a few icons instead of having 6 different kinds of things that you can put on these cardboard wheels. In X-Wing, you have 1 left, 2 left. They just separated it, and I like it.
I also like the idea of preservation of momentum for those ships, which, as you said, it makes sense with the capital ships. I wouldn't mind seeing that in X-Wing either, because then you have a speed and you just go for course corrections and you have to keep track of that. Yes. Maybe they found or thought at that point in time that would be too difficult or too annoying to keep track of.
Maybe. But you can't really jump from 1 to 3 in this game. You can in X-Wing.
But from a strategical or tactical point of view, I very much enjoy that thing, because I think the games we had here were more interesting from a movement perspective.
Yes.
And, I mean, let's be clear. All those war games are, or should probably be, 90% about positioning and getting an advantageous setup going for your squadrons and capital ships, rather than having luck while rolling the dice or just choosing the right equipment. It feels. It's a minor thing, but it feels like it brings out the player required skill more than it did
the tactical, strategical thought process and just the anticipation, what will the other one do? That is way more prominent in this game than it is, or than it felt to me with X-Wing.
I like the chucking dice in X-Wing 2.
But you were more frustrated.
We had a lot of moments where where it was awesome to roll really good, but it was also very not awesome to roll bad, or if someone's evading all the time and you're like.
What I really like is when you just said chucking dice, that they got rid of the defender, also rolling dice. You have your tokens, but you can only use them so much, and you only have them for the big ships. You're not having them for the tons and tons of squadrons that you can have on your start field. I really like it.
And you
it
don't,
saves a lot of time.
And you don't have the combination out of token and die roll.
Yes, and you had the token next to the tiny mini.
It is a very much streamlined system, and by now I wouldn't mind if Fantasy Flight would bring out an updated rule set for X-Wing that adopts some of those things. And,
because it's really done well here. What I first was not sure about if I liked it, but the more we played, the more I liked it, actually was that you can only use a different color die depending on how far away your target is. And I forgot in the beginning a lot of times saying, shoot, I only can have the red ones. But maybe I'm lucky, and most times I was when it came to what I rolled. But I forgot that all the time because I wasn't used to not having my full set of available dice there.
I think that also or emphasizes the point of your first game, you will make a lot of mistakes, and even with the reduced set of rules.
Yes.
But if once you get the basic flow, I think most of the stuff makes sense.
Yes, there was nothing where I said this is not logical, or this is not representative of how a ship moves and fires in space. It's not even close to anything in physics or the movies when it comes to the fantasy stuff. So it was very... I said, yeah, this is, of course it is like that. You gotta do that.
You can very easily regulate the complexity by saying, hey, no equipment cards, or let's just have a specific kind of stuff in there, or limit the additional
number
objective
of ships,
things.
Or you just reduce the points of the costs for how many ships you can have, then you necessarily have fewer ships so that you can control them better. It also speeds up the gameplay if you just don't have a lot of time but want to play around. You just say, okay, 4 ships, and that's that.
I mean, we are not going to tournaments playing this game. There's certainly, as with all the tournament games, there's a certain meta around this, where which combination of ships is the best, and which would you want to bring, or if there's some base tactics that you want to pick up. And from what I've read online, that seems to be a very compelling thing too. But we're just, well, it's just us.
Yeah,
being stupid and making stupid decisions, and then getting angry with ourselves by it.
No, I'm only angry at you when you shoot at me. I'm not angry at myself when I'm not able to roll dice in a fashion that is beneficial to my ships. Well, yeah. So that's what I like. And
yeah, I like and subscribe, she wanted to say.
No,
we're not there yet.
I mean, the only thing that I'm not really happy with is, again, the insert of the box, but we managed to get around that, as with every other game published by this publisher, and we're not surprised anymore. I'm beyond the angry. It's just, yeah.
I mean, I would assume for these, as I said, get some third-party products. If you get to the point where you have so many minis, that makes sense to store them separately. And
there's very good companies on the market
look at these. Even though this is essentially a gray model, it's still a very nice-looking gray model that could easily go into. It has this tiny antenna here, and that is the thing where I say, it would be just sad if that would break and you have to repair it, because, My point is, maybe don't move it back to the box. Keep it on your desk.
Or I mean, like I said, there's lots and lots of companies on the market that fill the gap of having a good insert, so just look for third parties that could help you out there.
Or just get one of those... we call those sorting boxes from your local craft shop.
Just go with craft foam, or go to your, I don't know, Home Depot or any equivalent in your country, and just, I mean, it's not expensive, and you just can get around.
So
damaging your models.
For me, I have to say I very much like the streamlined update to the existing thing. And this is probably now my favorite game compared to X-Wing. I would still say that I like Imperial Assault a little bit better because there's more group interaction and more shouting at the table and all that. But this is very closely behind Imperial Assault, and I thought it was amazing that some people try to tie those together, where you have some of those battles happen in Armada and some happen in Imperial Assault, which is some fan creation stuff. So there's some interesting avenues to tie those things together. But just also from a gameplay perspective, I found this a little bit more interesting than X-Wing. But that said, there's still a space for X-Wing in my heart, so we probably will still be playing that too. The dog fighting skirmishes and getting all that on the table.
Yeah. One of my favorite games with X-Wing still is me playing the Imperial forces, you being the rebels, and you chasing Darth Vader around the asteroid field for hours and hours. Yeah. And yeah, it was fun.
A big thumbs up because how the small things that got added to this that improve the game, like the shield counters on the ship. I very, very much like these little round things that you can put in here, or that you keep track of your health on these things instead of having shield tokens. I know some people really like having a lot of tokens, and it seems like you get a lot, but for me, it's getting annoying having so much busy work with a million tokens. And this game still has some tokens, or a lot of tokens, but
tokens, yeah.
It is more manageable in that regard. And there's a reason why I have this tray here to make things a little bit easier to store my tokens on there. But yeah, and I have to say, even playing with a couple squadrons and a couple of ships wasn't that much faster than having a little bit more ships now that we got two of the expansions. And it's interesting to try out different stuff. As I said, have a setup that has very few squadrons but very powerful capital ships, or have just one powerful capital ship and a lot of squadrons. Maybe some with some special abilities. So if you want to pick this up, or if you're torn between X-Wing or Armada, I would almost say I'd recommend Armada. I'd also say, well, that is actually X-Wing. The base game is a little bit more cheaper than Armada. Armada is quite expensive, but there's a lot more in the box than with X-Wing, where you essentially just get a couple of X-Wings and TIE fighters, and that's that. Here, there's a whole bunch of those squadrons. You get 3 capital ships, where 1 is really big and 2 are okay big, kind of. So there's certainly more material in there. If you're gaming on a budget, probably go with X-Wing first. If you don't mind the invest, go with Armada. I think it's the better game, at least to get started on this entire thing. And it's more streamlined and a little bit less frustrating. Mm-hmm. So shall we rate?
That's right. Has BB a voice too?
No.
Check it. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay.
And then no surprise there.
No surprise. No.
Yeah. Nitpickings aside, this is still an excellent game, and I very much enjoyed every time we played it. And this is one of the games where, on occasion, I will try to make time to get it to the table.
Yes. So let's hop into funny stories and experiences. And I have to tell the first story. Now, we got this game the week that Star Wars the movie got out. So mid-December.
Star Wars the game, the movie? Or
no, we got the game the week that Star Wars the movie came out, because it was the thank you so much for saving my life or my computer's life present that I got for you. We had it on our watch list for a while, but he really saved me and my work and my nerves and everything in mid-December. So not planned, but it happened the week that we also got to the movie, so I got him that game as a big thank you, instead of falling on my knees and just kissing his feet. So thought game would be better. So we had tickets to the movie with his parents, and before we went to the movies, we played the first round of Star Wars Armada. He was on vacation and I had a free afternoon, so we played. And we played the introduction scenario, as you're supposed to do that, and he was standing there like, can I play the rebels, the Imperial forces first this time? You're always playing the Empire first. So I said, yes, of course you can, though,
because I want to win.
I
want to crush those puny rebels with their hokey religions.
Remember when he said always do the Han Solo? Well, we had in the first round, he just forgot certain things
and
that
not
he
only
could
the
do.
First round.
No, but it was apparent in the first round, and then you got better at that really fast. But I actually won not because I was so super awesome, but because he forgot to have the evasion markers or something. He just took the whole damage often without taking care of his markers, because that is so different from X-Wing, and we were just not used to that, and firing before moving and all that, just so he was not always in a good position to fire in rounds, so that was really but come second game, space is not mine anymore, the Empire rules, it's the dark times for the Rebels ever since. And I even got support from Tina, who played the Rebels with me together in the third game. No chance. Nope. We were swamped. He's really good at those games.
Not necessarily, but
Can I play the Empire next time?
Funny things that actually are only mildly related to this game. So we got this, and the general hype with the movie came up. So after playing this, I immediately went and reinstalled X-Wing versus TIE Fighter and X-Wing, and kind of played through all of those. And not that actually didn't help me with this game, but that shows how strong the force of this game in getting you to pick up the old stuff, and I don't consider myself being very good at the strategy tactical things, but there's some things that hold true to the video games as they hold true to this game, like focus your fire on individual ships, and that was actually the way I got you, because you had those puny little shippies, and I just had to make sure that I could give you the full.
Yeah. And there was one thing where you were really good at, which is anticipating my moves when it came to the squadron. So you had them in close combat really early on. And though I have more life with the X-Wing, you rolled pretty well. So they were out of the picture in no time.
And almost, or very rarely, and that I think counts for both of us, and even Tina included, we did not use the repair action.
I did. I had it stored, but the next move was the next roll before you destroyed me always was repair, and I had the token.
I would say the most used action by you was the focused fire
on one ship. The other one always has the repair.
And it doesn't help you on one ship if it's.
No, I mean I'm always.
Maybe that's the reason why.
I usually I'm it's the same with chess with me. It's totally weird. The less
the repair
figurines,
action on the queen.
The less figurines I have, the better I am. I'm not good with really very many figurines. It being in chess or I don't know, backgammon or here TIE Fighter, X-wing, all the same thing.
Okay.
So if I only have two,
that's bad for you.
So I just focus on one ship that I definitely want to keep, that is really good, and I'm only taking care so much of the other ships.
There's too many for you on these. So
no, I mean, that's why I always have the repair token on one ship really early, and even that one you got right before I could repair. So the next move would have been repair plus the token and
what I was going to say, the games where I felt had the most crushing victory over you were the ones where maneuver was my most used action, which gives or makes the point that being able to position yourself and
8 shields are really helpful as well.
Well,
they are.
They don't. But with your firing sections and having to align them to the other ships and getting them in the correct positioning, position is super important now. Mm-hmm. Even more so than I felt it was in X-Wing, although maybe I'm just a worse X-Wing player than an Armada player. That is entirely possible.
I won more in X-Wing than I did in Armada, so maybe there's truth to that feeling. But anyways, we will have a lifetime score of how many times the Rebels win and how many times the Empire wins.
True.
So we will tell you in about 50 years. If then there is that thing still called YouTube. I don't know. Who knows?
Probably not. Yeah. So since this already feels, at least to me, like a 2-hour version, well, I think we're close. I didn't take a look at how long we've been recording, but
it's been a while.
Let's
wrap up.
If you're still with us, thank you for sticking with us. And sorry watching. For taking so much of your time, but
you can.
That's what's Armada. I have no pun.
There's so many tiny knickknacks.
I was trying to get a pun in there, but it just didn't.
No.
It didn't fire.
Oh. They evaded the joke. Anyway, let's wrap up. Thank you, like you said, for watching. If you have any questions or comments, let us know in the comment section below. Also, share it with your friends if you feel like they get something out of this video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because we have board games like this on the couch every Sunday, and one other board gamey thing on Wednesdays, which is Draw for Initiative, where my dear friend Tina and we paint sceneries from board games that we played, and it's always in watercolor and ink, and we narrate the whole video, and it's quite the funny thing.
And it seems to be the reception seems quite good. I've seen quite a lot of positive comments. Actually, you get more positive comments than we get for our couch thing here. What's up, guys?
They don't like you. No, just kidding. No. Oh, you get a steak later.
We have a duck in our video. They just do the painting thing. I mean, that's cool too, but we have a duck. So do you want to give me a hint so
yes.
I can guess again?
It's a cooperative game that plays in
Armada.
That plays
Armada
in a place that is surrounded by water, and you cannot go there.
Armada.
No.
Space Armada.
Come on, for reals. I got that game for you too. It was a gift to you as well. So
it is water, aquasphere.
Cooperative game. Why don't you ever listen to me?
Well, you cooperate with me in making me win.
No, not in aquasphere.
And I'm looking at other games.
You cannot see it in this shelf. It's in the other shelf. It has jelly beans.
Forbidden Desert.
Yeah, with water around it. You're correct. So check out
Forbidden Mud.
Forbidden Mud. No. Oh, no.
Forbidden Desert with water around it is probably Forbidden Mud. Or Forbidden Oasis.
We'll talk about that on Wednesdays, 9 a.m.
On the
CET.
Wonder Wall.
9 a.m. CET. Check out our newest video there, and I will see you for lots of other art videos throughout the next week. So stay tuned, take care, have fun, goodbye,
Goodbye.
Tschüssikowski.